I have the great pleasure of introducing you to Danielle. And you can ignore that it says Dr. Cari Schaefer over there. Her name is Danielle Nagy, and she has joined our team to help me support you. And one of the things that happened during this time was that she started asking me questions. And these questions are really great questions. And so what we decided to do was create these Facebook Lives where she asked me her questions and I answer them, because I'm imagining she is a perimenopausal woman. And I'm imagining that a lot of her questions are your questions too. So welcome, Danielle.
Thank you, Dr. Cari. So great to see you.
Nice to see you too. So happy to have you here on the team. We are putting together our next masterclass for all of you. It is going to be on mastering menopause, and it's coming in October, so stay tuned for that. Danielle will be a big part of that process. And Danielle, you had mentioned to me that you had some things you were working with in your body. So what is it that you're experiencing, and what are you wanting me to, educate you about?
Yeah, thank you. So I believe, one of the things I think that triggers women to say, hey, what's going on with my body is the weight gain. We feel it in our clothes. We sometimes see it on the scale. And especially when you haven't done anything, you haven't had the cake or the pizza or anything to warrant those extra pounds. It's extremely frustrating.
Yeah.
And it's then even more difficult to not feel like you have to restrict calories or double up on workouts because I'm not feeling good in my own skin. And you talk a lot about empowerment about this stage of life. How can I feel empowered when I feel so crappy in my own skin?
Yeah, it's a good question, love. So I am imagining this story you're telling when you're talking in the third person, but it's personal, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So some women's solution for this feeling is to eat more, and other women like yourself, it sounds like their solution is to exercise more. And one of the things that I've talked about, and I will continue to talk about over and over again, is actually what we're looking to bring in is balance. So when the body is out of balance, okay, when say we food restrict, as a lot of women do with, using intermittent fasting, you might initially lose weight, but what ends up happening is that produces more cortisol. And when cortisol is being produced, it's co-opting the adrenals away from its job of creating a precursor to estrogen. And so what we're actually doing is throwing ourselves into a bigger hormonal imbalance. When we have low estrogen, we gain weight. When we have high estrogen, we gain weight. When we have low cortisol, we can't lose weight. And when we have high cortisol, we gain belly fat. So all of the things that we used to do where we would go into extreme deprivation or maybe extreme working out to try to balance things out, they actually make things worse at this phase of life. And that is the tough piece for women to get. I was sitting and having dinner with a friend the other night, and it was breaking my heart because I try not to give people information unless they ask for it. And she's never asked, but she was doing intermittent fasting and she was eating one meal a day. This was her solution. And I hadn't seen her in about a year. And when I saw her, she was bigger than I've ever seen her. And she really had a belly. And it had been about a year since I'd seen her. But so she was doing this one meal a day. And she arrived at the dinner, which was a birthday dinner for her. And she said, I haven't eaten yet today, so I can splurge. And the truth is that people don't understand. So when we don't eat, our thyroid downregulates our metabolism and tells our body to go in storage mode, not burn mode. So when we're not eating, cortisol levels go up, and then our thyroid gets downregulated. So then when we eat, we only need the amount of calories we need in that moment. So when your calories go over the amount you need, you guys hear me talk about blood sugar regulation over and over. When we have more calories than we need in the moment, the body stores it as fat. Now you've been doing this fasting thing. So your body's down-regulated your thyroid, told your body to go into storage mode in case you're going to starve to death, because fat is an emergency system the body uses, right? And now you're giving it too much glucose. And so what you are eating is getting readily stored as fat. And so initially you might lose weight, but eventually what starts to happen is you can actually put on weight, even though you're skipping meals and eating only one meal a day, right? And so this is just that vicious cycle, that vicious up and down that happens during this time. 5 pounds of weight, 3 to 5 pounds is 100% normal, because your body, particularly if you're a thinner person and you have lower body fat, because your body is wanting to make estrogen, and estrogen moves from being made in your ovaries to being made in fat post this time. So when you're in perimenopause, you're in this shift, right? And so one of the things that I say about this time of life is what we're stepping into is a new role, okay? And that new role is this wise woman role. But for us to be embodying the wise woman, we have to clean up anywhere where we're out of balance. So any place where we're in push, overdue, underdue, deprivation, anything that's being driven from an imbalance rather than from our grounded center tends to throw us off. And that's why it's like so crazy, because we're not just changing physically, we're changing mentally and we're changing spiritually. So our brain used to value connection of other, because that's what it needed to do in order to procreate. Our brain now is needing connection in a different way, right? Our emotional body that for years has been navigating our life, now it like literally is being called forth, that these old programs in our system that have been keeping us alive for now, they have to be updated in order for us to embrace the wise woman. So our emotional world gets really, topsy-turvy as these things come to the surface. And then our physical body is changing, where we make our estrogen and the kind of estrogen we make is changing. So there's a lot changing that can make us not feel good. But what's being called forth is for us to really find balance, really find true connection, really work with that outdated survival program and bring it into the present day, so that we're able to step into this next role and then literally embrace this wise woman phase of life, right? So basically the weight stuff is just giving us an indicator of where we're out of balance, or that the methods we're trying to use to lose weight, they're not methods that are supportive. So I've talked about this before. The thing that I talk about over and over, and I've seen it with two women. One was a big intermittent faster, and it was one of the first cases where I always knew it wasn't good on the adrenals, but I actually got to see it in her labs. Her adrenals were in the toilet. She could not lose weight, even though she was fasting 3 days a week. And we put her on blood sugar regulation. She's eating every day now, 3 meals a day, plus snacks, very specific amounts, and her body's losing weight. Another woman for years and years and years struggled with her weight. As long as she regulates her blood sugar, her body will lose weight. If she doesn't, and she tries any of the old stuff, it goes off. Again, why? Because when the blood sugar is balanced, our cortisol levels can go down, right? And our body isn't in that thyroid, gotta save. It takes the body out of that stress. Does that make sense?
It does. So it sounds like we've got this emotional change in transition. We've got this physical change in transition. And when they kind of collide, it's this perfect storm.
Yeah.
How, aside from, you spoke very, much to the physical aspect of
Right.
eat those balanced meals. Make sure you're not going out of, crazy calorie ranges and splurging if you haven't eaten all day.
Right.
What can we do? Is there a tool that you could give us for the emotional side of balancing these changes?
Yeah. So exercise is an important piece, but moderate exercise. So not the hardcore, because what does that do? Creates more stress hormones, right? So making sure we're moving is an important piece. Another really, really important piece is is meditation. You've got, or if you're like, I can't meditate. If you're somebody who's like, I can't meditate, that's usually just because your nervous system's too jacked up. And we're sitting for 5 minutes, your nervous system sounds horrible. And very often that's a nervous system that's in some form of fight or flight. So what you want to do instead is you want to maybe do some breath work, some breathing exercises that are active. But even 10 minutes a day, do two things. They serve to get you more into connection, and they serve to get you out of fight or flight, so that when you are triggered, you have the capacity to meet the trigger rather than acting it out. And so I talk a lot about this. And if we're going to be offering, I mentioned we're going to be offering this mastermind that's going to be, last time our mastermind was on the weight piece, because as you said, it's such a big piece that'll be addressed. But what anybody who's in my weight class found out is that the body piece that has to do with weight really has to do with all the different symptoms that we have. But in this mastermind, we're going to deal with the body. We're going to talk about the body. We're going to talk about symptoms, but we're also going to talk about that connection piece and how to navigate the emotional piece. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing. In the meantime, the best thing that we can do is keep ourselves balanced. So get enough sleep, get movement in our body. When we don't move, our liver gets skunked up. And when our liver gets skunked up, we get straight up cranky. You just got to move to flush that liver out, right? So, and people are like, oh, well, I walk around my house. That's not moving. For whatever reason, I think when we're walking around our house, we're like stressing or something. It doesn't work. We literally need to be like moving our body. Yoga is a great form of exercise because it twists and it flushes out the toxins in the liver. We need to be drinking enough water. Super, super important. And my water glass here, I actually have one of these. This is 64 ounces. I'm a little bit behind today, but by the end of the day, this should be gone, right? Otherwise, I'm a terrible water drinker. And, it makes sense. I run dry. So my body has learned to live in a desert environment with not enough water. I'm trying to reprogram it to live in a, like a moist environment where we got like spring rains in the form of glasses of water instead of like, so we can and then sleep is huge, right? So we want to really clean up our sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene is, some simple things. Make sure in the morning you're getting outside in the early morning, outside and getting the light on this part of your head, because that's what that turns on the cortisol production, and then that to the healthy level. And then that's what sets the cycle in place so that the cortisol goes from high to low. It's low at night, melatonin kicks up. If we don't get that daytime daylight on our pineal gland, that cycle gets off. So that's a really simple one that I found made a huge difference for me. We want to decrease the nighttime light that we get. We want to get out of the blue tones, which computer screens are and TVs are, and we want to get into the red tones. So sleep, exercise, water, blood sugar regulation. That's like, start there and you'll start balancing out the brain. And if you're still struggling, then that might mean that you need some support. And that's what we do here, right? We help women. And I don't think I've ever said to the women here, but if you ever think you need support, you can book a 15-minute free session. We'll talk about what's going on and see whether or not I feel like I can help you. So.
Be very helpful. Well, thank you. Those tools were really amazing, especially for someone who has difficulty meditating because my brain is just racing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, to set myself up for success, getting outside, getting that light, and maybe just starting with those breathing exercises to get that as a tool to progress more into longer meditations. Might be
when we're up here thinking, and there's great apps for it. I mean, I just got sent one the other day. It's called Breathe, right? But when we're up here, we're in sympathetic dominance, which is not healing mode. And so we have to activate the vagus nerve. We have to get ourselves into parasympathetic mode, and that will enable you to meditate. And so doing something like breath work can help. And then at the end, sit for a minute after you finish it, right? That can help. We want to shift you out of sympathetic into parasympathetic. A shavasana can also help. It can be hard for some people. That's why I love yoga, because you're breathing and you're doing shavasana. But that shavasana, lying on the ground, arms out, earth, and just sort of feel like you're receiving the earth energy and just letting all that stuff drop to the earth for 10 minutes, right? In the middle of the day, does a lot to recharge you. And also the secret to sleeping is we ramp up all day. And then we're like, I can't sleep. The secret to sleeping properly is we're actually ramping down throughout the day. We're keeping ourselves, you know, in a calm state. We're taking pause moments that allow our nervous system to return back to normal, right? Rather than just letting us ramp up and then being like, I'm waking in the night, I don't know why, I can't get back to sleep. And then there's causes of that. There's low progesterone can cause that, low melatonin can cause that, a gunked up liver can cause that, you know, imbalance in estrogen, progesterone can cause that. So there's a lot that can cause that sleep issue. So again, if you're trying the basic things that we're talking about and they're not helping you, then maybe we need to look a little deeper and see what is out of balance in your body. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. That was
You're
very
welcome. I know we started with weight and we went all over the place, but yeah. So we are going to keep doing this for you ladies. Danielle, when she thinks of questions, is writing them down. We will show up here hopefully once a week and start to answer some of these questions. If you have questions, then tell us below and we will happily answer those. And so happy to be here with you, and mark your calendars for October 17th, I believe is the date we're working with right now. That will be completely free. It'll be going through deep dive into each one of these aspects so you can really understand what's going on and we can get you feeling better, because that's the whole point, right? We need all you wise women out there. Danielle, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cari.
Yeah.